This video is about anti-roll bars. The T4 comes with anti-roll bars installed already, and for a good reason. What do the anti-roll bars do? They help to limit the chassis roll of the car, which is beneficial for the handling, and that it will help the car to keep better corner speed, and it will also be easier to drive because it will stay flatter through the corners. So how can we use the anti-roll bars to fine-tune the handling of the car? We can change the thickness of the anti-roll bar. We can use a softer or a stiffer bar, both front and rear, and therefore we can alter the balance of the setup that way. So for example, the car here, which I just ran on carpet recently, it has the kit anti-roll bars on it, 1.4 in the front and 1.3 in the rear. And we feel that these bars are the best all-around options for both carpet and asphalt. It will give you a good balance, an easy to drive car, but it might not be the fastest option depending on the track surface and the track condition. So you can use this as a good all-around setup for most tracks, but if you want to go faster, you can fine-tune it by going softer or stiffer. So for example, so you can go to a softer front bar, a 1.3 millimeters in this case, and going softer in the front will help the front to generate a bit more roll. It will turn a bit more from middle of the corner to the corner exit, so it will have more on power steering. It will have more front grip, but it will also be harder to drive. So in that case, you can, for example, go to a stiffer front bar, which will give you more initial steering, but the car will stay flatter from mid corner to corner exit. So this can help for example, on high grip carpet or tracks where you have a lot of fast direction changes. So going stiffer in the front is mainly recommended for high grip carpet. Going softer is more of an asphalt option. So 1.3 millimeters is something we would use on asphalt. It's often used by the team on asphalt tracks. But 1.4 is the best all-around choice. Going to the rear, the kit has a 1.3 millimeter rear bar, which is our first choice for most of the tracks. But sometimes on lower grip tracks, such as low grip asphalt tracks, we use a 1.2 millimeter bar in the rear. And the 1.2 millimeter bar will help the car to roll a bit more over the rear. It will generate a bit more side traction, and it will also help the car to rotate better on those kind of tracks. There are certain situations where you want to go stiffer in the rear as well, so you can go to a 1.4 millimeter bar in the rear. This would be, for example, high grip asphalt or carpet, where you want the car to stay flatter over the rear, and also it can help to limit traction rolling on carpet. And finally, I would like to explain about situations where you would not use an anti-roll bar. And the only situation where I would remove them would be when racing in the rain on a wet track, so which we're doing a lot in Europe and especially in the UK, to try to generate excessive chassis roll on those kind of conditions, those kind of extreme conditions. Then I would remove the anti-roll bars altogether. But I would not remove them for racing on a dry track under no circumstance. And I'm now gonna demonstrate how to tweak the anti-roll bar on your T4. Setting the tweak of the anti-roll bar is a fairly easy process, which I will now guide you through. First of all, make sure that you have a little bit of play for the anti-roll bar, so that the collar is not pushing against the bearing, because if this is binding up, it will affect the way the anti-roll bar lifts, and we want this to have free movement at all times. So tiny bit of play here is what we want. Once that's done, you need to make sure that you double check the downstop. So in this case, as I've shown in my downstop video, we measure the downstop at an angle from the rear of the rear arm, right under the hinge pin. So in this case it's 4.6 on my car here. And at the front you do it the same way, but you measure from the front of the front arm, but from an angle under the hinge pin. So that's correct. What we then do is we detach the shocks. Then we will check the way the roll bar lifts. So use a caliper. We measure the axle at a point where the opposite side starts to lift. So I'm starting to pick up this right side of the suspension until the left side starts to pick up, which means the anti-roll bar is starting to work. So in this case, I can see that it's starting to move slightly at this point. And it's 41.3 millimeters. So that's the number that we're going to look for when we do it on the other side. So I'm going to measure it on this side now. We start by lifting the suspension. You can actually see that it's perfect because it's starting to lift at the exact same spot that I had on the caliper, so 41.3. If you need to adjust it, you need to simply tighten or loosen these ball studs in the anti-roll bar mounts. But be careful, don't loosen them too much, because if they're both coming out too far from the ball cup, it means that it will affect the way the roll bar lifts. So it will start to lift too early or too late. And yeah, I will start with the ball studs threaded all the way into the ball cups. And if you need to adjust it, start from there, so you don't end up with the ball studs too far unthreaded. And that's it, really. I mean, that's the way I do it, and pay attention to the small details in this case.